After the Bulgarian victory in the Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 894 to 896, the Eastern Romans were forced to pay tribute to Tsar Simeon I of Bulgaria. In 912, when the Eastern Roman Emperor Leo VI died, his brother Alexander refused to pay tribute to the Bulgarians. Simeon saw an opportunity to wage a new war and fulfill his ambitions to conquer Constantinople. Alexander died in the same year, and the new government under the Patriarch Nicholas Mystikos made desperate attempts to avoid the war, promising that the infant Emperor Constantine VII would marry one of Simeon's daughters. At some point, the Patriarch and Simeon even met outside the walls of Constantinople, performing a coronation ceremony. After applauding the Eastern Roman court in 914, however, the new regent, Zoe Karponopsina, Constantine's mother, rejected the marriage. In response, the Bulgarians raided eastern Thrace, starting the Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 913 to 927. Adrianople opened its gates to Simeon in September 914, and its population recognized Simeon as their ruler, while the Eastern Roman army was occupied in the east. In the next year, the Bulgarian armies attacked the areas of Dyrrhachium and Thessalonica. Both sides carefully prepared for a decisive end of the Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 913 to 927. Empress Zoe wanted to swiftly make a peace settlement with the Arabs and to engage the whole army of the East in a war with Simeon and destroy him. The Eastern Romans tried to find allies and sent emissaries to the Magyars, Pechenegs, and Serbs, but Simeon was familiar with the methods of Eastern Roman diplomacy and from the very beginning took successful actions to subvert a possible alliance between his enemies. Thus, the Eastern Romans were forced to fight alone. By 917, after a series of successful campaigns, the Eastern Romans had stabilized their eastern borders, and their generals John Bogus and Leo Phocas the Elder were able to gather additional troops from Asia Minor to reinforce the European troops, gathering a force of some 30,000 to 62,000 men. This was a very large army, and its goal was the elimination of the Bulgarian threat from the north. The Eastern Roman commanders were convinced that their strategy would be successful. Morale was raised as the soldiers vowed by the true cross to die for one another. The spirit of the army was further raised as the troops were paid in advance, and a fleet commanded by Romanus Lecapenus set off to the north at the mouth of the Danube. The Eastern Romans had tried to pay some Pecheneg tribes to attack, but Romanus would not agree to transport them across the Danube. Instead, they attacked Bulgarian territory on their own. The size of the Bulgarian army under Simeon I of Bulgaria is unknown. Although they ruined the Eastern Roman negotiations, the Bulgarians were still afraid that the old allies of the Eastern Roman, the Pechenegs and the Hungarians, would attack them from the north. So two small armies were sent to protect the northern borders of Bulgaria. In addition, Bulgarian forces under Marmace were deployed near the western borders with the Serb countries to prevent possible unrest. The Eastern Roman army marched northwards and set its camp close to the strong fortress of Achelous. Leo Phocas wanted to invade Moesia and met the Pechenegs and Lecapenus's troops in Dobruja. Simeon swiftly concentrated his army on the heights around the fortress. On the morning of August 20th, 917, the battle between the Bulgarians and the Eastern Romans began by the river Achelous near modern Achelous. The Eastern Roman generals planned to outflank the right Bulgarian wing in order to detach Simeon's troops from the Balkan passes. The Bulgarian ruler concentrated his most powerful forces in the two wings and left the center relatively weak in order to surround the enemy when the center would yield to the Eastern Roman attack. Simeon himself was in charge of a large cavalry reserve hidden behind the walls, which were intended to strike the decisive blow. The Eastern Roman attack was fierce, and it was not long before the Bulgarians began slowly to retreat. The Eastern Roman cavalry charged the infantry in the center, killing many Bulgarians. The Bulgarian position had become desperate as they could not manage to hold the heights to the south of the river and began a hasty retreat to the north. The Eastern Romans started a bitter chase, and their battle formation soon began to break, especially as a rumor spread that their commander Leo Phocas had been killed. At this point, Simeon, who detected the confusion in the Eastern Roman formation, ordered his army to stand, and at the head of his cavalry corps attacked the Eastern Roman left wing from behind the hills. With an irresistible onslaught, the cavalry bore down at the confused enemy, who immediately bent under their attack, panicked, and took to their heels. Some Eastern Romans tried to stop the cavalry charge, but they were also attacked by the infantry. Tsar Simeon personally took part in the fight, his horse killed at the height of the battle. The Eastern Romans were completely routed. Leo Phocas was saved by fleeing to Mesembria and Bulgaria, but in the thick of the battle, Constantine Lips, John Grabson, and many other commanders were cut down, along with an enormous number of soldiers and officers. By the end of the day, the Bulgarians overwhelmed the defenders of Musambria and captured the town. Leo Phocas barely escaped by boarding a ship. The rest of the Eastern Roman army fled all the way to Constantinople, followed by the Bulgarians. Several days later, Phocas was defeated once more at Katasirtai, where the last Eastern Roman troops were routed after a night flight. The way to Constantinople was clear. The Eastern Romans proposed a new peace treaty, and Simeon entered the imperial city and was crowned for a second time as Tsar Simeon, and also demanded that his daughter would marry Constantine VII, the son of Empress Zoe Carbonopsina. But Zoe refused and allied with Serbia and Hungary against him. However, in August 918, the general Romanus Lecapenus engineered a coup to depose Zoe and confined her to the monastery of St. Euphemia in Petrium, allowing him to become the emperor. The alliance with the Serbs postponed the decisive assault of Constantinople. Due to his also heavy casualties, Simeon decided to secure his rear and sent an army from his remaining forces under Mamais and Theodore Sigritza to destroy them. His generals captured the Serb prince, but that gave the Eastern Romans precious time to recover due to his already diminished forces, making him have no sufficient forces to fight on both sides at the same time. The Battle of Achelous was one of the most important battles in the many Byzantine-Bulgarian wars. It foiled Eastern Roman designs on Bulgaria, secured the concession of the imperial title to the Bulgarian rulers, and firmly established Bulgaria's role as a key player in Europe. However, the dynastic marriage that Simeon desired to establish with the Eastern Roman imperial family failed. After his death in 927, however, his successor Peter I was able to secure the hand of Maria Lekapine, the granddaughter of Emperor Romanus I, and with it an annual tribute, the renewed recognition of his imperial title, and the autonomy of the Bulgarian Church. The agreement started a period of 40 years of peaceful relations between the two countries, a time of stability and prosperity for Bulgaria. And that's it. Wait, actually, never mind, because there's a second battle of Achelous. So, since this early 14th century, the power of Epirus had been decreasing, while the Albanian tribesmen had been increasing their control over many areas of the despotate. Nicephorus II Orsini, the ruler of Epirus, decided to establish closer relations to Serbia by dropping his previous wife, Maria Cantacuzena, and marrying the sister of Stefan Dušan's widow. The Albanians of Epirus threatened revolt if Orsini married Helena of Bulgaria's sister, and didn't recall Maria, who was part of the Cantacuzene family allied with them. Orsini was forced to recall Maria, but decided to wage war against the Albanians to stop their increasing power in the despotate. Nicephorus II Orsini gathered his forces and marched against the Albanians in the region they had settled in Aetolia. The Albanians gathered their forces and under the leadership of Peter Losha fought against Orsini in the late spring of 1359 near the Achelous River. The Albanians won the battle, Orsini was killed, and his whole army was destroyed. After Nicephorus' death, the remaining major towns in Epirus, being under risk of capture by the Albanian troops, submitted to Simeon Uroš, and the remaining areas of Epirus were divided between him and Radoslav Hlapin. Simeon, unable to expel the Albanian leaders, tried to maintain indirect control of Epirus by recognizing Peter Losha and John Spata as rulers in the regions of Arta and Angelokastron and Lepanto respectively. Although most of Epirus came temporarily under Albanian rule due to their tribal structure and lack of central authority, the Albanians didn't replace any existing Greek or Serbian rule with a centralized Albanian country. By 1366 to 1367, only the city of Ioannina was still under Albanian control. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Another battle video will be coming out soon.